Let's practice reading a primary source together. I chose this document with critical thinking students in mind because they have to write about tackling a real-world problem, and this document lays out a very clear argument. But if you're not a critical thinking student, this can still help people who are just learning to tackle primary sources. Primary sources provide both challenges and opportunities for researchers. There is no context here for you. You have to be a detective, just like historians and researchers do, and find contextual clues and interpretations. There's no essay or caption or secondary account telling you what this document is about or what is happening in a photo. It's up to you to discover this for yourself. So let's begin. We're going to read through this document once carefully, instead of scanning it and then going back and trying to find the clues that we missed. I recommend taking extensive notes when you're doing research, and if you're working from a PDF as I am, or a photocopy, you can write directly on the document as you go. Keeping in mind the 5 W's can be important for organizing your thoughts as you go. That's who, what, where, when, and why. So let's begin with the header. Remarks by Mayor Edward I. Koch. Press conference on banning semi-automatic assault rifles. Blue Room, Thursday, February 9th, 1989, 10 a.m. This alone contains a lot of useful information. First, we know who is speaking, Mayor Koch. We also know when and where, and the subject of the talk, banning semi-automatic rifles. Now, if I'm a researcher and I see that it is happening on February 9th, 1989, I think to myself, I don't think the mayor just woke up and decided to talk about semi-automatic rifles. Something must have happened in the news that provoked this speech to be made. Because this is a press conference, we know it's a public-facing document rather than something in private correspondence. So if I were taking this clue, I would then go to newspapers and look at the dates leading up to February 9th, 1989, and find out if something happened that provoked this speech to happen. With all this information, we're going to read through very carefully and slowly, finding clues for what research we can follow up on. Good morning. Today I am joining with Police Commissioner Ben Ward, Council Majority Leader Peter Vallone, Councilman Joe Lisa, and Council Public Safety Committee Chairman Jerry Crispino in calling for a federal ban on semi-automatic assault rifles. Stop here. This already has a lot of information. Before continuing, be sure to write down the names of the people that the mayor has identified so you know exactly who was standing next to him when he gave this speech. These are all people who are associated with public safety and the well-being of the city. The mayor didn't decide to get up and give a speech on his own about semi-automatic assault rifles. Instead, he has a show of force here of council leaders and the police commissioner. He's also calling on a federal ban of semi-automatic assault rifles. This is important. This is your subject of the talk. However, we know that a mayor, even one as powerful as Ed Koch, cannot pass a federal ban. So this is not a speech about a law he is passing, but rather his intention and the belief of leaders in the city. Continuing, he says, weapons such as the AK-47, the AKM, and the Uzi do not belong in the hands of civilians. These guns are not made for hunting or self-defense. They are made for one purpose only, to attack and kill human beings. I'm going to stop right there because already we have more information. The mayor is identifying specific weapons and not all guns. He says this is not a statement about guns made for hunting or self-defense. This is important because often hunting and self-defense are the primary reasons people give for wanting to have guns. The mayor is addressing this argument head-on and saying these are not the guns used for hunting or self-defense. Instead, these are only guns made to attack and kill human beings. He then continues, recently 5 children were murdered in a California schoolyard by a killer with an AK-47. There is no rational reason for private citizens to possess these deadly weapons. Semi-automatic assault rifles and all components which convert such weapons to fully automatic fire should be banned by federal law, and quickly. So recapping here, we see that he moves to a very specific example. He identifies that 5 children were murdered in a California schoolyard. As I'm reading this, I'm thinking very carefully about the argument that the mayor is making. He may have chosen this example because it is what sparked the reason for him giving this speech, but he's also using an example that involves children, who are the ultimate innocent bystanders in this situation. He then moves on to what he wants to do, which is to ban, by federal law, semi-automatic assault rifles. So he repeats his point. There is no time to lose. It is estimated that since 1985, more than 88,000 AK-47s and 102,000 Uzis have been imported into the United States. The price of an AK-47 can be as low as $300. Almost anyone can buy one. This paragraph is different from its previous paragraph in the kind of argument it's making. Here he's using statistics and numbers in case the emotional argument didn't get through to somebody. He says, the vast number of these weapons that have been imported into the United States and the low price that can allow almost anybody to buy one. The mayor continues, law enforcement officials throughout the country find themselves increasingly outgunned by heavily armed criminals. Preliminary figures from the FBI show that of 77 police officers killed in the line of duty last year, at least 18 were killed by semi-automatic or semi-automatic weapons. Also, growing numbers of innocent bystanders have fallen victim to the violence and carnage caused by rapid-fire weapons. Again, the mayor is making his point through multiple different angles. He cites preliminary figures from the FBI, and he points to police officers because some people might respond more to the violence against police officers and those who are hired to protect us in considering a ban on semi-automatic rifles. He then also cites that there is a cost to innocent bystanders. He continues, it's true that guns don't kill people, people do. But it's also true that killers and armed criminals can create large numbers of victims in a very short period of time by using a semi-automatic assault rifle. I'm going to stop here, because why does he say, guns don't kill people, people do? Once again, he's using an argument that is very common for people who might not agree with him. He's saying exactly what the argument is, and then countering it immediately after with his own opinion. It is estimated that as many as 500,000 of these rifles are currently in circulation in this country. These weapons have no place in the streets of America. We are here today to call on Congress and the White House to act quickly and ban semi-automatic assault weapons from the United States. Again, he closes this paragraph with his argument and what he'd like to do, even though it's beyond the power of the mayor. Here in New York, Councilman Joe Lisa is proposing local legislation to the City Council, which would have the effect of banning these weapons in our 5 boroughs. So now he's pointing out what he is doing within the bounds of the city. He concludes, I have asked the Law Department, the Office of the Criminal Justice Coordinator, and the Police Department to carefully review this bill. If we can lawfully enact this legislation, it will have my full support. Why does he say this? Because many council members might not want to vote for a bill that the mayor is going to veto. Keep in mind that the City Council is the legislative body of New York City. So proposing this local law, the mayor is indicating that he will support it and that this bill can pass. This is all he can do within his powers as mayor, aside from call on a federal ban. So if I were beginning my research with this document, I would take the next steps. I would first research the date that this happened and find out what incident occurred that made this mayor give this speech. I would then look to the City Council website or archives and find the bill that came out of this speech in order to see what law was passed. I can also see who supported it and the arguments made for and against it, as well as newspaper coverage after the fact about what happened because of the law. Reading primary sources takes patience and tenacity. Some documents are handwritten and very difficult to decipher. Others were never meant to be public, so they're not as clear and don't have as many clues about how you can follow up with other research. But I hope this was a helpful starting out point as you begin to dive into the world of primary sources and make interpretations of your own. Good luck!